Anton Kara's Third Man, masterpiece by Sir Carol Reed, my favorite film, or one of them. I'm Randy Credico. This is Randy Credico live on the fly here on 99.5 FM in New York City, WBAI.org. Give to WBAI.org to support the station. We'll be talking to Steve Donziger real soon, the persecuted attorney who won a big case against Chevron, and then Chevron went after him. He found a friendly judge here in New York City that basically works for Chevron as far as I'm concerned, and that is Loretta Preska. She found him guilty. She found him guilty. No jury, just she. So there will be a sentencing on October 1st here in New York City at the federal courthouse, 500 Pearl Street. Big rally before. Roger Waters will be there. We're going to play his tune, The Bar, which hasn't been published, at the end of the show. Susan Sarandon and others. So we'll see you at 8 a.m. on Friday, October 1st, 500 Pearl Street. I also have a few tickets for the show that we're going to give away if you become my buddy. And the show is Stand Up for Julian Assange. Stand-ups for Julian Assange. It will take place at Theater 80 St. Mark's on October 24th, 7 p.m. That's a Sunday. It's basically sold out, but I do have 5 tickets for those who today become a buddy. Randy Credico's Live on the Fly. So do that, and we'll see you at that theater, that wonderful historical theater. We're going to play a little humor-esque here by Dvorak and come right back with the courageous attorney, persecuted attorney, Steve Donziger. We're back. I'm Randy Credico Live on the Fly here on 99.5 FM in New York City, Free Speech Radio, WBAI.org. And you support the station by going to give to WBAI.org. As I said in the opening, we are only talking about one issue today, and that is the persecution of Steve Donziger. By the way, I'm coming from upstate New York. I am in the Catskills, where I've been ensconced for most of the year. But I will be in the city on October 1st, which happens to be my mother's birthday, at 8 a.m. in the morning in front of Federal Courthouse right there on 500 Pearl Street. There will be a big demonstration prior to the sentencing of my guest, Steve Donziger, who has been the victim of a witch hunt. He's been persecuted. He's the subject of a show trial. It's one of the most outrageous legal battles I have ever seen in my life. They're battling against him because he won. They lost, and they couldn't take it. And we're talking about Chevron. And Steve, thank you for coming back on the show. I'm looking forward to October 1st. Let's just say, how important is it to have a big crowd out there on that day in the morning?
Well, good to see you, Randy. Thank you for having me. We think it's important that the court see that I have support. I mean, Chevron's goal with this whole process of is to try to criminalize me and isolate me. To the contrary, I've gotten support from 68 Nobel laureates and lots of bar associations, lawyers, citizens. It's really been amazing, and we have to keep it up, keep growing our campaign. At 8:30 in the morning in front of the courthouse, 500 Pearl Street, Manhattan. If you're in the New York area, please come to the rally. Speakers are going to include Roger Waters and Ron Kuby, Marty Garbus, 2 of my lawyers, Marianne Williamson, you might remember her, she ran for president in the last election. She's been an amazing supporter, and others. So come, and a bunch of people from the Ecuadorian community in New York are going to be there, and union officials, and it's going to be what I hope will be a big turnout. And then everybody's going to walk into the courthouse and go into the courtroom and sit and watch, and in support of me and support of the people of Ecuador, and see what Judge Preska decides to do, whether she's going to put me in jail or not.
Yeah, well, it's been a triangulation as far as I'm concerned. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but between Chevron, Preska, and is it Rita Glavin,
Yeah.
those three putting a pincer move on you, it must be such a Kafka-esque experience. A gentleman like yourself who has been before judges, has worked in courtrooms, to see yourself the victim of this kind of Kafka-esque treatment. What goes through your mind?
Well, I just can't believe it's happening. Maybe I was a little naive. I don't think so. I've been working in the law for many, many years, 28 years. But what's happened to me, I couldn't anticipate. It's unprecedented. Basically, I'm being prosecuted by a corporation. This is the nation's first corporate prosecution. The US government refused to prosecute me on these charges that Judge Kaplan, Lou Kaplan, charged me with, which I think are completely baseless. They're not criminal. They stem from what's called civil discovery disputes in a civil case between me and Chevron, involving privileged information and confidential information. And no lawyer's ever been prosecuted for that. And the US government, the SDNY, refused to prosecute me. So Judge Kaplan appointed a Chevron law firm, Seward and Kissel, to do the dirty work. Rita Glavin, who also, by the way, represents Andrew Cuomo, has been paid $1 million or more by taxpayers to prosecute me in a case that, again, the government refused to take up. So, we don't, in any rule of law country, you don't allow corporations to directly prosecute their adversaries, much less have them locked up at home, where I've been now for 775 days, when the longest sentence ever imposed on a lawyer convicted of my crime of contempt, supposed crime, I'm certain my innocence, served 90 days in home detention. That's Bruce Cutler. So I've already served over 8 times that amount, haven't even been sentenced yet. The idea on top of that, she would impose any kind of sentence on me, jail or otherwise, I think would not be fair or appropriate.
Well, that's Bruce Cutler, who was John Cotty's attorney. 90 days at home. I'm 700 over 2 years. I met you way back in the 90s, and you had already been on this case for 6 years at that point. I think it was 1999 when you were helping my organization with the Rockefeller drug laws, getting lawyers to get involved. And 700, is it 785 days at this point?
775 days.
All right. So by the end of the week, it'll be 700. That's already a 2-year prison sentence, basically, to be at home. I want to ask you, you haven't been able to practice law for the last 2 years. You haven't been able to do what you do best. Look around the world. If you were able to, if you were not in this jam, give us an example of where you would focus your attention and your legal skills on to try to remedy some of the damage to the earth.
Well, I'll give you 2 obvious examples. I mean, one is I would still be helping my clients in Ecuador enforce their judgment against Chevron. Chevron hasn't even paid a penny for the worst oil-related disaster in the world. It was done, by the way, deliberately, not by accident, when it operated in the Ecuador Amazon from 1964 to 1992. I mean, literally thousands of people have died by being exposed to this cancer-causing oil waste that Texaco, now Chevron, deliberately dumped into the environment. There's other cases that people call me all the time to help them. I mean, one obvious case is the situation with the residential boarding schools and the policy of the US government to commit essentially cultural genocide against indigenous peoples throughout the late 1800s, early 1900s, by forcing indigenous children into boarding schools against their will and trying to strip them of their identity. And literally thousands and thousands of kids never came home. They died in these schools. And there's never been a reckoning for that. There's one going on right now in Canada for the same policy, but this was a policy propagated by the US government, with the complicity of the Catholic Church, which ran a lot of the boarding schools. And that needs to be dealt with. That's a case I would love to work on. It's never been brought here in the United States. And there's so many other climate cases involving environmental cleanup and stuff. The bottom line is this: frontline lawyers like myself who do this kind of work need to be protected, not prosecuted, not locked up. That's not what should happen in a country that purports to adhere to the rule of law like the United States of America. This work is necessary to hold major polluters accountable, to change the incentive structure such that big oil companies do not decide it's worth the cost, or worth, I should say, the profits to pollute, which is what Texaco and now Chevron did in Ecuador. So when you can lock up the lawyers who would hold you accountable, the risk calculus favors the polluter. And they're going to continue doing the pollution, and the planet is going to continue being destroyed by global warming. And the lawyers who do this frontline work, and the advocates and the campaigners, if they get locked up like me, are not going to be able to do the work, and it's going to really be very, very bad for the planet. We are defenders. We need to be protected more than anyone. And, obviously the contrary is happening in my case because of Chevron's ability to capture part of our federal judiciary and turn it against me.
Well, what is I'm just going to pick up on that point, there seems to be a real chilling factor resulting from the prosecution of Stephen Donziger on other legal advocates. Do you find that to be so, that the people are fewer and are less likely to get involved because they don't want to have to go through the same rigmarole that you've gone through for the last 3 years?
Look, I think what's happening to me is designed to protect Chevron from paying the judgment in Ecuador, and also to protect the industry by using me as a weapon to intimidate other lawyers, other environmental lawyers, from doing this work, which has a beneficial impact on an industry that commits a lot of bad, horrible acts, including acts of pollution that harm people. So yeah, I think it does have a chilling effect. I think that's why it's critical people note what is happening to me and do what they can to help me and protect me. If this is a playbook by the fossil fuel industry, and they're deploying it not just against me, but against other lawyers and activists who are a little too successful in their work. Whether you're a lawyer at Standing Rock, a lawyer at Line 3, a protester at any of these places, they're trying to come after you by overcharging, civil disobedience as criminal offenses, or by taking a lawyer like me and making stuff up and claiming I committed bribery in Ecuador, which I did not. So we have to understand that what's happening to me goes way beyond me. It's designed to intimidate other lawyers and activists, to chill advocacy, to prevent us from holding this industry accountable. And ultimately, the consequences of that kind of intimidation are that we could not only lead to tremendous death and suffering in places like Ecuador, but also accelerate the destruction of the planet. I mean, the stakes are enormous. We need to protect our rights to do this frontline advocacy.
Right. Well, I think people, unless you go down there, I've seen the videos and pictures of the damage done, but I think one needs to go down to Ecuador to really appreciate the damage that has been done. How vast and deep has that damage been to that environment in Ecuador?
Oh, it's called the Amazon Chernobyl. I mean, it's probably the world's worst oil related catastrophe. But, just to be clear, again, I repeat, it was not an accident. The BP spill in the Gulf of Mexico was an accident. What happened in Ecuador was by design. It was an engineering design implemented by Texaco to save money. And it involved the systematic toxic dumping of millions of gallons of cancer-causing oil waste every day into rivers and streams that indigenous groups relied on for their drinking water. That's what they did. And the impact over 25 years was absolutely horrific. It continues to this day. Nobody knows the precise number of deaths, but they're high because of studies or health evaluations we've seen, but also because of anecdotal evidence. I mean, just the number of people who we've known who passed away from cancer is off the charts. Um, the damage is intense, and it's probably the worst of any oil-related damage in the world. I mean, you go down there, you can see literally lakes of oil on the jungle floor, hundreds of open-air unlined waste pits with pipes running their contents into rivers and streams, gas flaring. There's a black rain phenomenon where the rain comes down with the soot. You can't even get clean water from the rain. And it's, you take this beautiful ecosystem called the Amazon rainforest and you turn it into basically what's an apocalyptic nightmare. And that's what Chevron did.
You talked about you being accused of bribery and all that. To me, what I've read is that it was Chevron, or Texaco first, and then Chevron, that somehow made a sweetheart deal with local corrupt leaders in Ecuador, way back before there was Correa as a president.
Well, that's true. I mean, Texaco was in Ecuador in the mid 1960s, drilling. And at the time, Ecuador had a military government. Over time, it transitioned to democratically elected governments, but nothing changed. I mean, Texaco, then Chevron, or later Chevron, had an enormous amount of power. As a matter of fact, that's why Texaco insisted the trial take place in Ecuador. I mean, they had operated there for 25 years, dumped billions of gallons of toxic waste, were not held liable for even $1 in damages. I mean, they really had essential, for all intents and purposes, they had impunity. And, then we came along and suddenly they didn't have impunity. So they went after the lawyers to try to distract attention from this, $10 billion liability that they face.
Well, it's David versus Goliath, and I hate to use that kind of trite cliche, but it really is. And you're fighting this big organization. I know there was something similar to it, 60 Minutes, when they were going against R.J. Reynolds, but that was a big corporation, and they had problems. How did you think an individual like yourself, a one man? And I know you have people around you, but one person doing all of this work was going to go against a corporation even bigger than R.J. Reynolds?
Well, first of all, it wasn't one person. I mean, let me be clear. This is a case that's controlled and owned by thousands of people in various communities down in Ecuador. I was just one of several lawyers on a team. I mean, the reason I've been sort of isolated and targeted is a couple reasons. One is I live in New York, where Chevron found a friendly judge to help them. Two is I did play an instrumental role in the case over the years. I was visible. I spoke to the media, criticized Chevron publicly. And I think they decided, based on their focus groups, to strategically try to make me the face of the case as a way to distract attention from the tremendous harm they were causing to indigenous peoples in Ecuador. So they want, when they see a conflict, they want it to be between Chevron and Steve Donziger, not between Chevron and indigenous peoples. And it's important we remember that, because even by getting on shows, Randy, like yours, in a way, we're playing into Chevron's narrative that it is about me. It is not about me. I am one of many lawyers on the case, and I don't own the case. The people of Ecuador have won the case. They have other lawyers who are helping them enforce their judgment and get Chevron's assets in other countries.
Well, there's billions of dollars that they have at their disposal. You would think that they would show some, like a drop in the bucket, to show some contrition for what they've done. But hitherto, they have not, have they?
No, they have not shown any contrition nor paid the first penny or dollar to the people affected by their pollution. It's really an outrage. To the contrary, they've spent billions on 60 law firms and more than 2,000 lawyers to attack us who have successfully won the case against them. So rather than take that substantial amount of money and put it into remediating the damage they caused in the forest or complying with the law based on these court orders, they snub their nose at the courts and spend money on these powerful law firms that work with literally hundreds of lawyers to go after me and others who have driven this case to a successful conclusion.
I know that you have lawyers that are going to be down there who've been representing you in Preska's courtroom that are working pro bono. but I know there's also a lot of expenses. There's a lot of paperwork, and there are other lawyers that are around that are not in the courtroom. So, and it's costly. What can people do to help out underwrite the costs, these monumental costs that you're absorbing?
Well, what I would ask people to do, if you can, is go to our website at freedonziger.com, FREEDONZIGER, one word. We have a legal defense fund. Donate. I mean, we could not survive and cannot survive going forward if we don't get adequate resources. And thus far, we have literally thousands of people around the world who've donated small amounts of money. You can give $1, $5, $10. Please get on that website, freedonziger.com. Once you donate, you get on our list and you'll get regular case updates that we send around. If you can do more than that, $100, $1,000, even better. But we need to raise a substantial amount of money to pay lawyers and to pay legal expenses. And so me and my family, which includes my wife, Laura, and son, Matthew's just started 10th grade, can survive. I mean, I haven't been able to earn a penny for 2 years because I've been locked up. So we need help. Go to the website. You can also learn more about this case on the website. There's articles. And even if you can't give, you can get on and sign the petition and join our campaign. You'll get the regular case updates. I mean, we need to spread the word. We need to build the movement. This goes way beyond me. It affects every advocate, every lawyer, every activist, whether you're in the environment or some other issue in this country. Like we cannot let our federal courts be turned into weapons of private corporations to attack and lock up their critics. That's what's happening here. That is the issue. That is what is never, look, we have a lot of problems in America, a lot of problems in the criminal justice system, police racism being an obvious one, over incarceration. But you know what? This has never happened before, where a private corporation has locked up its adversary. And I'm telling you, this is the new playbook of the fossil fuel industry to go after activists who are on the front lines to hold this industry responsible for its role in creating global warming, which is destroying our planet. It's all connected. We have to protect free speech, democracy, rule of law, advocacy, and you can do that by helping me. You know, if they get away with it in my case, if I end up going to jail, if those who have done this to me kept me in my house for 2 years with an ankle bracelet and are not held accountable, we're going to be in a much more dangerous situation than we would be otherwise.
Wow. Well, I'm not going to follow up with that one great closing statement there. I'm Randy Credico. We've been talking to Steve Donziger. Please join him, Roger Waters, Susan Sarandon, Mariana Williamson, and many other. 8:30 in the morning. Get there at 8. I'll be there at 8 at 500 Pearl Street, there in front of Federal Courthouse, and show your support. Go to his website, donate. We have to go now. We'll see you next week, possibly with Steve Donziger again, just prior to the October 1st.
Randy, just to repeat, the website is freedonziger.com.
freedonziger.com, right? DONZIGER, Free Donziger. All right, we've got to go. See you next week, possibly with Steve again. All right, thank you very much. This is Randy Credico, live on the fly here on 99.5 FM in New York City, WBAI.org. Thank you.
Does everybody in the bar feel shaky? Lord knows I do. I guess we all feel pretty much the same. Kinda wore out by this crazy fucking zoo. The smell of napalm with the cornflakes, the chafe of killing everything that breathes, imposing sanctions on the lady down the street. till she takes the hint and packs her bags and leaves. Come on in here, sister, and set a spell. You're almost welcome in the bar. We may seem few, but we are many. Have you been traveling for? The girl who brought you in here is Lakota from Standing Rock, where they made their stand. So from Fort Yates, North Dakota, here's a message for the man. Would you kindly get the fuck off our land?